Boys, welcome. Episode 6, the Locker Room Life podcast. I'm so happy to be on here with you guys. So much going on. Reporting here from the land of the melting sun. I'm about to die soon, but not just yet. I'm here, zipping it around. So excited to just dive in with the boys. It seems like it's been a while, but I just wanted to sauce it over to, let's give it over to my boy, Jay Diebel.
Shit, it has been a while.
It has.
I feel like
Missed you guys.
I don't even know what's been going on. I was down for a week after getting my teeth pulled. That just sucked. I, lived on smoothies and just had a little checkup today and they said everything is going great. So weird, dude. People are like, oh, wisdom teeth, they heal so fast. I mean, getting them pulled at 40 probably wasn't a good idea, but I had to. And then the dentist or the surgeon today was like, yeah, you could feel normal in a month. I was like, okay, awesome. So that's been cool. Some work. I didn't play hockey for 2 weeks, which was crazy to me. Played today. That was great.
Played since I've been on the ice with you guys.
Yeah, that checks out for you. When you get older, you'll want it more.
Deebs, how are those mitts today?
Good. I actually had a great skate. It was nice. The legs were a little questionable in the beginning. First couple of shifts, I was like, oh, these puppies are tired. But no, it was great. This is a fun thing. I was talking to the guy that runs the skate. Super nice guy. His name's Dave Buffardi. Shout out the Buffardi family. He's got 5 skates a week. It's always good. It's always good people. Anyways, I was talking to him afterwards about just the haps at the rink. We want to do a little photo shoot there. It sounds like we're moving along with that. But they do this rookie adult clinic, like just teaching people who are getting into hockey like at an older age. And it sounds funny, but it's like how we were when we were kids learning how to play. Like you don't know where to line up, you don't know what bench etiquette is, you don't know. So it's like hockey fans kind of, or people that are interested in the sport. But I was like, oh man, that sounds like fun. And he was like, you know what, it is a lot of fun. I was like, let me know if you need any extra bodies out there. And he was like, are you kidding? We love that. So I think I'm going to give a couple of sessions out there and help some people learn how to play.
That's sick. Look at this guy.
I don't know.
Giving back to the community.
Charity work.
Giving back. That's what
Coach
he's about.
Diebel.
Sunday nights, man. It just sounded like the right thing to do.
Coach Diebel.
Yeah. I don't know how to coach anybody, but I'm happy to have a chat, Tell someone how to line up. I don't know how to do that either. Shake hands, butt taps, all that. Yeah. Logan, tell us something good.
Yeah, boys. Just been wild on my end. Actually, it's my 21st birthday tomorrow, the day we're recording this. So I went and celebrated last week in Miami, Florida, attended UFC 314. As I've mentioned prior, I'm a big combat sports fan. I love it. I adore it. I was like a kid in a candy shop, taking pictures of my favorite fighters, like a little kid, but it was amazing. And I mean, no need to get political on the podcast, but the President of the United States was there. His whole cabinet was there. It was pretty damn wild. You go through security. TSA is doing the security with Secret Service behind you, staring at you with ARs in their hands. But it was amazing, life-changing experience. It was unbelievable on that end. And then my end, we not going to say any names yet because nothing's confirmed, but had some confirmations of some new teams that are going to be joining the family here soon at the professional levels. I'll be able to tell you guys after we get off the pod, but don't want to say anything too crazy yet. Looking like we're going to be across all the professional leagues in North America. We're making strides. And I just got accepted to this other pitch competition in Palm Springs, California.
Buddy.
Yeah.
You're going to Palm Springs.
Yes, I am. Well, Steve Forbes is a judge. Richard Branson's a judge. So many people are going to be there. I'm pitching to 1,500 people in the audience. It's going to be pretty damn wild. And so win $30,000 and then the whole week of networking and fun shit. And my first time going to California. And it was completely paid for by my wonderful university, West Virginia University, covered. Really wanted to send me out there and network with everyone and hopefully win some money, bring it back home. But yeah.
So congratulations, wild. But we're going to kick it in Palm Springs. That's close to me. We have we're like 10% owners of a restaurant in Palm Springs. So we'll come out there, dude. We'll come out and hang out with you and get you some nice burgers and martinis. Martinis for your 21st birthday.
Dude,
It'd be
I
the
love
best.
it.
That's
Yeah.
what every 21-year-old wants to drink. A martini.
I am so pumped up. It's going to be pretty electric, and just same old shit on my front. I got a busy day of work tomorrow on the birthday, and just practicing for my next pitch at the end of this month, and then recording with the fellas at all times. We got some great pods coming up here soon these next weeks.
Logan, I want you to kind of elaborate. And I know me and Jay know a little bit about it, but to our listeners, kind of about the pitch competitions, just a little bit of like in a nutshell of what you're kind of doing with that, because it's a rad thing. Like we always tell you, but Jay and I are like proud papas, like watching you get out there and getting your hustle on. But I think it's a cool thing, and I think it's something that just want you to tell the listeners about it, because it's a really rad thing that you're doing.
Why don't you also tell them what the fuck you're selling?
Yes, everyone, it is just for the hockey tape. Yes, you can do all these things with just putting your name on some hockey tape and getting some hustle behind it. It's all best damn tape. Trying to keep building and growing it. And for college kids especially, there's so much, I don't like to say free money, because you have to work your ass off and practice for it, but it's no strings attached money. You're able to get this without having someone get equity into your company. And you can go out there and really generate crazy amounts of revenue. I've seen kids raise up to almost $500,000 in free money just from all these pitch competitions. And basically, if I know most of you guys have probably seen Shark Tank, but it's literally like Shark Tank. The Shark Tank pitches are a lot longer than they put on the shows, but you get 5-10 minutes to talk about your business in front of a crowd, and you have to really touch all the points that they want to see. If it's different rubrics for different things, you got to do that. It's pretty crazy, but it requires, when I first did it, most people, when we first started the podcast, like I hate to listen to myself talk, and we all kind of agreed on the same thing. And watching myself, especially like the movements that I make when I'm nervous and different things like that. But it's an interesting learning curve, and it's just a bunch of practice. I just got to practice every day, nonstop. And just literally when I wake up in the morning, I'm brushing my teeth and saying the pitch to myself in the mirror. But yeah, it's pretty much Shark Tank to put it in like layman's terms, but it's fun. It really, really is. And I know I don't like to get too distracted from the actual business portion of it, but it's really nice to be able to take advantage of the opportunities.
Super smart, buddy. Super smart. Yeah. Super stoked.
Like I said, like we've told you, Jay and I say it all the time, man. You have so much wherewithal and so much knowledge at your age, opposed to when we were that age. And we commend you every day, man. You're doing amazing things. You deserve it. You deserve great things. Everything that's happened to you to this point, you fully deserve, man. So
yeah, not everyone gets to meet us, It's pretty cool.
Yep.
Inshallah, brothers. I appreciate it so much. I like to say it is all hard work at the end of the day, but don't like to take it away from the people who support me, like you guys and everyone who kind of is there for my support system. Because one thing I will say before we break into the rest is it's a lonely journey, no matter what you're doing. When you're building a business, like you're spending, especially myself, you're spending 12, 13-hour days just really sacrificing. And you could say your college experience. I have a great college experience, but you're locking yourself in a room for 12 hours a day, just getting shit figured out, getting shit done. And it's really all going to be worth it in the end. And I thank you guys again. It means a ton to me.
Yeah, man, it's a labor of love. We are all on here together, but we know everything that goes into it, the balancing of life, balancing of everything that goes into it. And it truly is. I know it's like we went through in the Brady and Logan interview. It's like business is a labor of love. And fuck, if you don't see the end path or the end goal of it all, you get spun around really quick. But yeah, we're proud of you, brother. Just want to give you guys an update on what I did this weekend. It's official. Surfing.
Oh, I saw that.
Is in Arizona.
I saw it everywhere.
Revel Surf Park opened up by my house. Me, Matt Stoops, my buddy Mike Shuttlesworth. He came down from California. We went to the Revel Surf Park, just opened. It was fun as hell, but it was also scary as fuck. I'm not gonna lie.
Wait, I have so many questions. Because I didn't. I got an invite to the Palm Springs Surf Club.
Yep.
And I didn't go. I couldn't go. But
I want to go there.
I'm like, dude, not a big. I grew up more bodyboarding because I live on like a shore break town. But I was watching these things are it's like a slab. It's like a heavy wave. I saw Stoops' little barrel, and that looked like a fun wave, but they can change it, right? They can make it. Can they make it like multiple types of waves?
Yeah. So quick background on the owners. They actually, don't quote me on this, but they owned another surf park. I mean, Shane Beshin, another big surfer, they kind of collaborated all together on an investor level. They own another surf park. I want to say it's the one in Palm Springs. I think they have a little bit of hand in that. Maybe the one in Waco also. Also, I could be butchering those facts, so don't quote me on it. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So they're still refining everything. Stoops has been on the ground level of this thing since he. So if you're listening to this man, dude, he's from the minute that this thing broke ground, he was right in there.
Hell yeah.
So, but yeah, they've been refining this thing. So they have a bunch of different waves, from an elementary wave to they have like your VLAND, and you have your trestles wave. So it's all essentially based on trying to replicate the wave as best as possible in that location. But it's a pretty crazy thing, man. Like when I say it's scary, like it's scary. You get out there, right? So they distinguish how many people can go out there, and then you split the peak. So you decide kind of like on this grassy knoll before you go out there, and you're like, okay, I'm going to go left. Who's going to go right? And then you kind of line up that way, and you kind of build a lineup, right? As you would. And then you kind of go through, and then, but the scariest thing is like, you're coming up to this thing, and all you hear is these machines just going, and when you turn around and you look, it's like this massive metal head that's like right there, and the thing's like moving, right? So as it's generating, it's like you're kind of getting propelled to this whole like metal head part of it. But anyways, I got to be a complete wuss, but it was actually pretty scary. But Stoops was out there just crushing it. Me and Charles were getting used to it. The first session, I was absolute garbage because I was just getting used to this whole thing. I was like, oh, surfing, I haven't done this in 3 years. What the hell do I do now? But it was super fun. I think it's, shout out to them. It's a really cool addition to like our community. We live in a really rad community in Mesa, Arizona. So it's, I mean, 7 minutes away from the house, which is cool. But they kind of have this like beach area. So I was kind of looking around at the families and guys playing, like parents playing with their kids. They have a bar and a restaurant area. So I mean, at the end of the day, it's like really cool to have something close to the house that's really good for the community. So shout out to Revel Surf Park, man. They're doing it good. It was fun. But
especially when you live, in the outskirts of hell.
Yeah. Seriously. It was also 100 degrees that day. So we were like in the water, and it was like bath water, which was epic.
Is the water normally cold? Do they tell you?
Yeah.
Is that Palm Springs when they can't do anything to keep the water warm because it's too much water and it's moving so much? So they like dudes will just be surfing in the desert in wetsuits, which is just the whole thing's crazy. Sorry, Logan has no clue what we're talking about.
Nope, not a single thing, boys. But
that's okay. We can move on. That was great, though. I'll talk to you more about it later.
We were all completely wrong on any of our predictions for the winner of the national championship, the grittiest team out of all of them. I can't believe my boys lost. I was absolutely heartbroken. I watched the game. It was a pumping. It was a thropping, they may say. But yeah, Western Michigan, what a dark horse to win the Natty. Congrats, Broncos.
Best team won. It was just crazy too. Like, I'm sure you guys saw it. Like, we know when the college season is over, all the guys that were kind of, you didn't know if they were going to go pro or not, is literally the next day. So it's just like dominoes that fell. So it's crazy, it's part of the system, ever-changing landscape, college hockey, CHL, juniors, the whole thing. But it's pretty cool to see these guys. I couldn't even imagine jumping from your college season into some of these guys, into these teams play.
How about Leonard just going straight into
Banzameka
into Ovi? Like, that's so crazy.
Dude.
It's nuts, man. Did you guys see when he went to the bar on BC campus? What a legend. What a legend. Oh my God, man. He was at the bar with all the literally on a BC bar with all the boys, and Ryan Leonard just like standing randomly in the crowd, and Ovi's just sitting there with a Coors Light sitting at the bar just singing Banzamaker dance.
Ovi went with him.
Yes.
I thought you just meant that Leonard went to the bar and everyone was like, oh, yeah, you're back, and like whatever.
No. Ovi went with him.
That's unreal.
Yeah, dude. So sick.
So Strom was on Chicklets, and he actually told the story. They were just in town because they were playing Boston, and they were just like, what are you gonna do tonight? And Ovi's like, what are you gonna do? And he's, we're just gonna go to this like little dive bar or whatever. And he's, we're gonna go. So Ovi, Carlson, they were like, I'm in. So they said, like you guys probably heard, but they walked into this bar And we're like,
I didn't finish
probably
the Strum interviews. This is news to me.
10 to 20 people, 10 to 20 people in there. And they're just like, I can't believe that this beauty just walked in. This guy's just a legend. But I mean, we should talk about it. Let's just give a stick taps to our boy Ovi. I mean, I'll go first. This guy, I think it's a changing of the guard on a lot of different levels. A lot of people said, like, with his flash, with his swagger, with his style and stuff, that nobody would ever break hockey's most coveted record. But it's so good to see. And I think now more than ever, just being able to see the type of guy he is. He's a good captain. He's a good player. He's a good ambassador to the game. And I'm glad he's getting his like proud moments in the NHL because fuck, man, I would never have thought. And I think it's so humbling when you hear his interviews of they were asking him, like, I don't think he ever thought that he could ever do it, but it's so amazing. And he's always stayed so humble. And Ovi, dude, you're the man.
So yeah, I was like doing some like stupid like math because it was all kind of tripping me out too. And I was like looking at like when Gordie Howe started in the league and, you know, to when him and Gretzky overlapped for a season or something. And then, you know, it took 13 years for Gretzky to break Gordie's record, which is crazy because if you think of Gretzky, Gordie, Ovi, top three, right? That Gordie has been on that at number one for over 50 years or some shit. You know what I mean? So then Gretzky beats him, whatever, takes 13 years. Then Ovi takes 26 years to beat Gretzky's record. So just to think about that is just crazy to me that the next person, you know, is Gordie Howe, who played how long ago he played. Do you know what I mean? It's just Gordie and Gretzky that are up there. And for a guy that we got to watch his whole career, it started when Logan was born, before Logan was born, to beat these guys is absolutely mind-blowing. I was trying to like, everyone just goes, yeah, that's a lot of goals. That's crazy. Played a lot of seasons. But like when you think about the other guys in line, you know, like how old's Gretz now? You know, like
60
how old would Gordie be now? You know, it's like those are crazy, crazy numbers. They're like,
rest in peace, Mr. Hockey.
Right. But that is, to me, that's just crazy. Like if you know, Ovi's sitting there at 40 years old going, man, the third place guy would be 100 years old today, or however, you know what I mean? That's bananas. That those are the two guys you had to chase down. The guys have been holding this record down for.
It's so crazy to even think about. And like you said, like just watching Ovi evolve and there's no one quite like that guy. I mean, yeah, like you have Gretzky, who's like the all around, like complete player, whatever, but there's no one with the swagger. There's no one with the hits. Ovi's on pace to break the hit record.
That's bananas too. And you like, think you say different times, different game, right? It's a different game now. It's harder to score. Yeah, fuck yeah, it's harder to score. But also like you can tell it's a different game. The crazy thing is that Gretzky's total points.
Oh, that'll never be touched.
Unbelievable, right?
That will never ever be touched.
That's the equivalent, right? So like you have to score. Gretzky had to score get that many points to be the all-time point leader ever, you know, of all time in the game in those days. That's how many you need. So now it's like Ovi to beat the goal record. I mean, it's okay. That'll never be broken because the game's going to get tighter and be harder. I don't know. Guys are scoring a lot now, but
I don't know.
It's crazy.
I also think part of it is that the generation of hockey players Ovi may not be the perfect example, but these guys are freak athletes.
Yeah, but like you can't get hurt anymore.
I understand that, but if you compare a person that is, who knows how recovery is going to be in the next 30 years?
It's true.
And have a playing hockey. Like, who knows what bodies of athletes are going to be able to do and the advancements that everyone's making.
Yeah. I mean, think about breaking your leg and coming back in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what the fuck? Are you the Winter Soldier? What is wrong with you? How is that even possible? It's
good,
crazy.
Good drugs. Yeah.
I saw, to kind of leave it on a high note there before we enter into the great podcast that we have. I saw the funniest meme. You guys may not think it's hilarious, but it was literally just like a picture of the ceremony and like on the ice and they rolled out the carpet like after the goal. and it was just like the top, and it said, "This is a lot for closing the lead 3-1, huh?"
That's funny. And my closing, I guess I know I've just rambled about a bunch of bullshit, but back in the day, I thought Ovi was the shit. I had yellow laces. I had a long string hanging from my pants, and could never go with a wild visor. But pulling the puck between his legs, going backhand. I was like, dude, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to shoot like that. I want to have that kind of grit. I want to hit. I want to do it all. Maybe he doesn't back check that much, but man throws the body around and he's got a bomb. So let him do his shit. You know what I mean? I love it. I'm stoked for him. I think he's a fucking cool dude. He thanked his team. He thanked his family. That's what hockey's about. I love it. Go, Ovi.
I just want to, one more note too, and I know you guys think this too. I think there's a huge difference of, again, in hockey, breaking a record like that in hockey, and to see the class that Gretz showed, to be there along the way, to be publicly happy, and you could tell he was happy, and those emotions are real, opposed to, I don't know if you guys know this, but Saquon Barkley was about to break Eric Dickerson's record for rushing this year, and he was interviewed about it, and he said, I don't want him to break the record. So again, it's just, we talk about it all the time, like, of course we're biased with hockey, but it's just another show of ultimate class of how our game continuously grows in legacies. And it was so cool to see. I mean, Gretz didn't even have to do that at all. The playing styles, dude, we could talk about it until we're blue in the face. Like, Gretz played in a different era, to your guys' point, I think.
And Gretz wearing the Gordie Howe pin?
Yeah. Amazing. Just another classy move. But just being able to, like, the game these days, I think longevity, I was just so in awe of how long he's played at this level. It was so amazing to see his teammates and their sacrifice that they made. And it's crazy that Washington almost won the President's Trophy. They dropped it the other day because they didn't clinch, and Winnipeg ended up winning it. But along this whole ride that this is happening for Washington itself, which at the beginning of the season was just like nobody expected anything out of it except the fact that, like, he was going to be chasing this record. It's awesome. It's so cool to see. And playoff hockey, boys. Here we
There's
go.
Another thing that I wanted to say about some class in the NHL that I've been picking up on that I just love.
Yes.
Dude, I got so emotional when Big Rig was playing in his last game and Alec Martinez. And I was like, they were just showing them both crying. I used to play against Alec Martinez when we were kids. So, and I have a signed, framed picture of the goal that he scored in overtime against the Rangers to win the cup. It's at my parents' house. Yeah, dude, I love the guy. Got 2 cups for the LA. I love that. And 3 cups now, as retiring. So crazy. Good for him. But yeah, to see all the players on other teams just like respecting these guys, giving them handshakes. There's been like a lot of extra handshake lines. Everybody paying their respects to Fleury.
Yep.
A lot of handshakes for him, a lot of hugs from everybody. I mean, I don't know what it is about Big Rig, but he just seems like such a teddy bear and like a nice guy. And I wouldn't want to play against him because I'd be scared he could rip your head off. But him just crying, retiring, and like having just everyone on the team hugging him and Foligno's embrace was like super long. And I was just like, oh God, I'm like losing it. But I just think there's been a lot of, there's another one I couldn't remember. Marchessault coming back to Vegas, got like a big standing ovation and welcoming from the crowd. And I just think that all that shit is so cool to me. The handshakes in the playoffs, I could watch. I mean, I watch all of them and watch what players are, vets hugging each other or vets giving love to like new young MVPs. And I just think all that shit says a lot about people and, and the game. And it's like my favorite thing to watch. So I love seeing it.
I think also too is, I think those moments, especially with Big Rig too, you could tell it's like he tells a story, and we always talk about it, the hockey journey, right? Like, he's like, fuck, I shouldn't have made it. I shouldn't have made it this far. And I think when you're actually in that moment, it all kind of comes to light that this moment right now is like, I never would even think would happen. So I got so much respect for guys like that. Like, I mean, Alec Martinez too, a huge part of the LA Kings teams that won the Stanley Cup, part of that core. But Yeah, man. Big Rig, though, what a career. Collected some rings, just a personality, got to celebrate with Cooch.
I can't wait to see him just lighten up some roller highlights in his retirement. So sick. Logan, you got anything to say
All
about
right.
that?
I don't know.
Okay.
You guys were going a little hard on the respect for all of that, and I can't agree more. It's something that no, I mean it's just interesting. I mean, in Big Rig especially, he's a guy that has had an interesting career. I mean, by no means I don't think he's a very good hockey player. I mean, there's honestly NHL levels, and then Big Rig is definitely a character guy, and he destroys people. But I mean, if you watch him play hockey, it's very interesting to watch at the same time. But I do love the respect. He's an amazing person. And same with Marchessault. I saw that. That was amazing. And that's the same thing. It's just across the board. Any of those guys, they're going back home. All of those guys are like, they just get standing ovations. It's unbelievable. And like you were saying, that's hockey. And that's not even bias. That's literally not even bias. That's just pure facts. There's not any other sports. I mean, you can see it for like basketball with Luka going back to Dallas, but like he's an all-star. They do it for guys who aren't like even like guys who just spent their career there and were just role-playing guys and guys who aren't typically all-stars on the team, but they're showing the respect for them. And that's hockey and that's facts. And there's no bias behind that.
Just thought I'd throw that in there. I love it, Logan. Yeah. It's fun to watch, man. Especially getting old and just being like, you just feel for these guys. It's like guy put in 875 games.
That is beyond me, man. Listen, I don't mean to be a hater at all. I have no idea, man. I have no
it's cool, man. It's cool.
He is literally, he's like Baloo from Jungle Book. It is unbelievable to even watch it. Like I have so much admiration at the same time because I don't know how he keeps up. I genuinely don't know how he keeps up with these guys. It just makes zero sense to me.
There's some of those guys that you could play that are in the right place all the time. They're
wild.
They're
man.
like,
it's so wild
they can lock you up. They can stop you from moving. It's like they're probably he's probably a million% a glue guy.
Oh my god,
it's just you. It'd
be the best to have Big Rig on your team. I mean, you'd hate him, but he'd be the absolute man to have on your team, and that's what I think.
He's just tickling the red line at every warm-ups. Yeah,
what the fuck, man?
Yeah, I just love it. I mean, also, I think 800 and something games, and it's just when you see these guys come to a healthy end of their career, like it's a kind of a beautiful thing,
Yeah, and he wasn't like an all-star by any means. Like he gets still that love from his home place that he was at and all that. So it's just it's so cool.
Yeah.
And honestly, Jay, that was a beautiful, absolutely touching segue into the most highly touted guest we've had yet on the Locker Room Life podcast. Just unbelievable, very surreal for me. It's the commissioner of the USHL, Glenn Hefferan. I've known him since I was a young wee lad. He used to kick my father out of junior hockey games back in the Metro Met League. And he also kicked him out when I was a youth player for yelling at the refs over the glass as well. But that's besides the point. It was amazing. He touches more on talking about the level of, as Frank would say, the best junior hockey league in the world. I mean, he's biased. I'm surprised he didn't bring the ring to the pre-recording, but it's something special. Like that league is something special. What he's doing is special, and kind of the culture that he's trying to develop there with foreign players, with the players that are for their mental health, for their religion, for everything. It is just so awesome to see what he's done with the league so far, and so many cool stories. And I even got a teary-eyed at the last story he tells on the pod, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it. It's going to be unreal.
Yeah, the Commish is what we're going to name this episode. But yeah, all class. We thank him so much for taking time. He's a busy guy, but it was really amazing that he took some time out to talk to us. But yeah, what else could you say? That league is at the forefront of the developmental process of the next generation of players that are going to the NHL, and the next guys that we're going to be seeing, the next Big Rigs, the next OVs, the next everyone that is kind of taking that next step. So it's really amazing that the growth and the investment that the league is making into these players these days it's just so refreshing again for hockey to show what they do for the younger players to make sure that they're full rounded individuals. So, Glenn Hefferan, thank you so much for coming on. And on that note, USHL Commissioner Glenn Hefferan, hope you guys enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another wonderful episode of the Locker Room Life podcast. Today's guest, really excited to have the commissioner of the greatest junior league in the world. I'm biased because I played in the league. Glenn Hefferan, the commissioner of the USHL. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Oh, my pleasure. And Frank, I agree with you. It is the greatest junior league in the world, and we've got the numbers to prove it too.
A good place to start is kind of a busy week for you in the league. You know, maybe you could elaborate on things that were happening in the league this week.
So, well, we just wrapped up meetings actually down in Florida with the NHL. They do a leadership summit every year. We just wrapped that up yesterday, and we've got obviously the national team camp tryouts, and all of our GMs are there, and just who's making playoffs, who's locked in a spot. So it's that crunch time, and it's obviously we're getting into award season and recognizing all of our players with their accomplishments and getting to that, and then looking at all of our players that are being recognized throughout college hockey and who's signing NHL contracts, and so it's just an exciting time. It is our own version of March Madness, or as we like to call it, the silly season.
So, Glenn, you've been the commissioner since 2023. Kind of a quick look back in your tenure so far. I know it's a kind of a loaded question, but what do you think you're most proud of to this point?
I would say that just a continuing progress and reputation that the league has, and our advancement to the National Hockey League and to college hockey is just so strong. Obviously a change in the landscape because of an NCAA rule change that'll allow CHL to be eligible, but that doesn't stop how we develop players. We think our model is actually the best model. We train, we compete, we recover. Friday, Saturdays, 92% of our games are played Friday and Saturday. So we don't have players on buses all the time and having a hectic travel schedule. So I think those are really important things. And we play, I think, a schedule that's really the right number of games to develop players to the collegiate and National Hockey League. So I think one of the conversations that I've gotten to have with several players that have moved up the ladder, they've all said the same thing. Their toughest leap is from where they were playing youth hockey into the USHL, not USHL to college, not college to pro. And I always find that fascinating. And I know we've quoted Rand Pecknold. We did our draft last year in his building, and it was a great experience for us. And we were grateful that Quinnipiac let us do that. But I had a moment to talk with Rand for a bit, and he said, I don't consider the USHL a development league. And my heart sunk, and I'm like, oh gosh, where's this going? And he said, no, I consider it a survival league. And he said, USHL players are just battle-tested warriors. College coaches can throw everything at them, and they just take it, and they're just so ready and ready to play at the next level. So I take that as a really good compliment. And you look at our GMs and coaches that move on, and so it's just that part of it is exciting. And anytime there's a change in the landscape, I think you hear this a lot about hockey. We are the last group that want to change anything. Change a rule, color of the puck, cross ice mites, like icing on penalty kill. Like, we lose our mind over change, and yet change is an opportunity, and we have to see those opportunities for what they are. And I think never before have you had these conversations so strongly with the National Hockey League and with USA Hockey. And so it's an exciting time. And, not everything that you read on the internet, is true either, because, they'll paint the bad, and, because everybody rather read the bad stuff, right? It's so much of it is just, inflammatory and exaggerated. And, if you don't, I don't duck from the press. Everyone knows that. If you see anything about the USHL and the league isn't quoted in it, have a degree of suspicion about it.
Fake news. You heard it here
It
first.
could be.
Commissioner.
Could be.
Yeah, it's just so crazy. I mean, I've had so many friends who've gone through the USHL, and so many players played at Waterloo, Muskegon, and just different things like that. And to kind of take more of a step back at your perspective, what led you to be the USHL commissioner? I know that you had run-ins with my dad when he played in the Met, when
Just a little.
when he played in the Met a long time ago. So just
About every week, Logan. He knows me.
I'd love to hear your story on
all you're doing is making me feel old. So I have a long history with the league. We started, I think it was around 95 or 96. We started putting Met League All-Star teams together. And I remember one of the first teams had Mark Eaton on it and Rob Scuderi and Chris Sorella, just some really, really good players. And Mark landed in Waterloo and played for PK. And I just, as I said, I think those were life-changing moments for our players. My first trip out there, I was asked to be part of. Dave Ogren, who was the executive director of USA Hockey at the time, said, I'd like you to be on this Super League task force. And it was the very beginning of getting the USHL to Tier 1. That's what it was. It was to take the best teams and find a way to get them on the same platform, providing the same, from skates and sticks and billets and all that stuff, just best practices. And that was the beginning of it. And my first game was in the old McElroy building in Waterloo. And it was like their largest crowd ever, 5,400 people. And then the next night was in Des Moines, sellout crowd. And then the next night was in Oxarbin for the Omaha Lancers, and another sellout crowd. And they were scalping tickets in the parking lot. I never saw anything. And I said, wow, we've got to get our best players to this, because this was a way to develop top talent. And so, it's an evolution, and it took, quite a bit of time to get there. But I've had the good fortune of working with many of the commissioners of the USHL, Dave Tyler, and then Gino Gasparini after that. Gino was certainly a mentor. So I've had a lot of good fortune along the way to have really good mentors. This was not anything I was really looking for. I got involved trying to help someone buy a team in the USHL. And then the next thing I know, I was kind of immersed in this process. And I was doing other things in hockey and was very satisfied at the lane I was in. It was no longer my full-time, job. But I will say I've loved every minute of it. Yeah, there's a ton of challenges, but if you love what you do, it's the challenges are not easy to tackle, but you enjoy getting after it every day. And I have an amazing staff that just they crush it. They're a dedicated group of talented men and women that are they're great. So I'm really fortunate to work with that group, and we have a great group of ownership and coaches and GMs. And so from that standpoint, there's no challenge that we can't handle.
So it's a great parlay into kind of what was going to be my next question. You allude to challenges. What are, in this ever-changing landscape of junior hockey as a whole, what is one consistent challenge or something that you're kind of working through that you can kind of elaborate a little bit more on, just with the recent current happenings in junior hockey?
Well, I think there's one aspect of this for players, younger players, emerging players, that I call it FOMO. It's that fear of missing out. I think a lot of times players are making these decisions. Well, Frank went, so I got to go. And the reality is there are no secrets in this game. If you're a good player, you're going to be found. And so players today lack patience. They see, Logan gets a commit, at a young age, and then it didn't happen for me. And so I think they end up making not the best choices in their development. And I think that's what players need to look at. Don't look at the shiny toys and, they have a great weight. Look at the development models that are actually developing players. So and I think that's how you tackle these challenges, is to make sure that players understand what exactly it is we've been doing. And I think in part, maybe that's a message we needed to yell a little louder and make sure that it was clear. And just to give you some numbers, over the last Over the last 5 years, USHL has had 197 drafted players. There's no other league that's close to that. And the next closest league is 163. We account for more than 50% of college hockey and in top programs. So I think from that standpoint, when you share that message and you share those data points, the data doesn't tell the whole story, but it tells a big part of it. And again, we don't have a collective bargaining agreement with the National Hockey League. We haven't had decades of funding, other leagues have had, and we're coming into that. And the NHL partnership is looking to be really good, for us over the next, hopefully over the next decade. And I think will be groundbreaking for us. But I think those are the things but making sure that everybody understands what it is when you come to a USHL team, what your experience will be. And I think that's the message. Far too often, I think players, they struggle with adversity. And, well, I didn't get any shifts. I didn't get enough time on ice. And they're not understanding that it is a development process. And it requires patience, and so it's just easier to look at college hockey in the portal. When I ask college coaches what their biggest challenge is, they all say it's retention of players. We've got players, and now all of a sudden they want to portal out. That's just kind of like I don't think that's good for the sport. I don't think that's good for our ecosystem. But take a look at what's happening around youth. Look at some of these players, and they were X club 1 year, and the next year they're in another club, and the next year they're in another club. And so I just don't think that's, the healthy thing, but they're chasing something, and they should be chasing their development path and nothing else.
Yep.
If
that's great advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we talk about just kind of that whole, what you touched on there, just the whole social media aspect of it. And I grew up in that, seeing these kids committed at 13 years old and going to play against them, and being in Detroit playing Bell Tire. These kids are going from Little Caesars to Bell Tire to Honey Baked every other year where the coaches go. And it really is crazy. And to see that, and I guess this kind of also goes into the next question, like, for the growth of the league, where do you see the next years and the leading years for the league, and where you're going with it?
Well, we've had the good fortune of having a lot of expansion opportunities thrown in our direction over the last year, and I think that's a really positive sign. Right now, we are looking at 11 different markets in the U.S. We've had several invites to consider Canadian markets as well. We've paused those just out of respect for how the ecosystem is changing, and excuse me, and how we're looking to be supportive of our brethren across the northern border. So we've paused those opportunities, but I think that is our goal. The NHL wants us to expand. They want us to create more opportunities. When you look at our total, we get 50 plus drafted players that are either directly in the league or they're a year out, they're in college, right? So we get that every year, and, we want to get to 100. Well, the only way you really get to 100 is you have to grow. You have to create more opportunities for players, because there is no perfect formula for this. What you look at a player today and a coach passes on him only to find out 3 years later the kid's a stud, right? But that's what happens in this game. You're not always going to guess right. And so by having more opportunities for players, that will obviously give us the opportunity to develop more players for the National Hockey League and obviously for college hockey. I think as what we hope is an outgrowth of this is to see college hockey expand too. We'd love to see college hockey grow.
So I had a question on the topic of quote unquote fake news and not hearing it directly from you and from the league. There was news going around about two teams that were granted leaving the USHL to enter into another league. Again, I just wanted to ask, because you never know what you hear on the internet, and I would love to hear directly from you and the source to kind of see what that was.
I think some of that, I think there's a lot more to the story yet to come out, and there's parts of this that I'm not at liberty to, due to confidentiality reasons.
Of course.
I can't discuss. What I can tell you is both teams have fully committed to participating in the USHL for the 25-26 season, I think USA Hockey has made their position clear about further CHL expansion. And again, that's part of the reason why we backed off the Canadian markets that were interested in the USHL. And I think there's a lot of sound reasons why USA Hockey took that position, and we support that. But that also goes to the notion of why we have to grow so that we can create more opportunities. So from that standpoint, like I can assure you that those two teams have fully committed to participating next year. And that's their stated goal. And, like anything else, when there's a changing landscape, sometimes things happen in a reactionary way. And as I said, it's not everything that you're reading is not entirely true about it. There's other stories about, what we were, $50,000, fees for transferring players, that just didn't happen. So as I said, there's not a lot about that part of it that I can talk about. And maybe at some point we will be able to. I think that's probably likely, but we're still trying to, put all of the rest of those pieces in place so that we have a really vibrant 25-26 season and just continue doing the things that we do.
And with the reputation of the league being so strong in the global market of hockey, is there more conscious efforts on the global level to attract more players? Because again, it's just a known fact that the USHL is the best junior league in the world. But have you as a league kind of consciously marketed more to just have more options for players on a global level to bring them to the States to play?
Frank, that's a really good question. So last year at the draft, any of our foreign players, our non-US players, that we wanted to make sure we were getting interviews in their native language. And so we asked our staff, make sure you get interviews, and ask them to do it, whether it's English and French or English and Russian or whatever it was, because we felt that was important to have that content so that we can, create advertising pieces out of that and help share that message in that native language, because it sends the message that we're open for business, that we are welcoming of any talented player. And that's, I think that remains. And so we do have a cap on imports. We have a total of 6. And then there's an exemption for players that have played youth hockey in the U.S., which I think was a smart move. But, so we do have it at some kind of an unrestricted position now where there used to be some guidelines around it, and those guidelines have been removed, and it's just 6 imports.
Yeah, and it's something for me. I was definitely blessed to play for a great organization, Scott Owens and the New England Buccaneers. They did. Still to this day, I think of those memories, and Logan knows. I talk about it all the time. It was the time of my life, and I think that brotherhood and just the league changed my life, and really formed a lot of amazing things and pathways in my life that opened up. That after hockey, I was able to basically unlock. So it's one of those things. On that note of playing with players from different parts of the world, we played with 2 Slovakian players, Peter Sena and Peter Smrek, who were 2 amazing guys that just being able to, at that time, just a blending of customs and being able to play with players and speak the universal language of hockey that we kind of united together in playing in the USHL. So, I mean, it was such an amazing experience. And again, it's so amazing to see that the league continuously keep growing. It's so exciting. And I wanted to ask, what is your view of junior hockey as a whole? I know there's a lot of leagues, and it's not necessarily just on the USHL level, but just kind of your general bird's eye overview of the junior hockey landscape, with a lot of leagues now opposed to years ago, and just if you could maybe comment on that a little bit.
Sure. So I've, as Logan knows, I spent a lot of time Logan's father certainly knows, spent a lot of time in junior hockey. My whole life has been surrounded around junior. Most of my hockey life has been involved in tuition-based junior hockey, although I did start the Bismarck Bobcats back in '97. So, and I, served on USA Hockey's junior council. So I've watched the evolution of it. I think junior hockey has an ebb and flow. When I jumped into it, I was actually asked to start a team because the old Met League, which was started by Emil Francis of the New York Rangers, the league, there was an age change in USA Hockey, and the league literally had 15 teams, and it went down to 3 within a year. And that age change had a devastating effect. And I was actually asked to start a team, and I did. I started a team called the Junior Devils. The league helped me get the team off the ground from a funding standpoint. And so I've watched this evolution, and all of a sudden, junior B hockey became this really cool place to be, because all of us collectively throughout the country, all of the junior B league commissioners, we all saw what our mission was. And that was, we want to develop players up the ladder to junior A. And I'll give some examples. John Carlson was 15 years old. Charlie McAvoy played 15 years old in the Met League. There's a gang of players, and I'm going to draw a blank. Just a lot of tremendous, talented players that, and by the way, some players that didn't make it, and they're back coaching and reffing, and they're all, they're back contributing somewhere along the way to the ecosystem. And I think that's what's important. I think what junior hockey does, especially for that player that's graduated high school, doesn't know what to do with his life, and says, you know what, I'm going to take a year and play junior hockey, whether that's EHL or the North American League or the USHL, wherever it is. It's a unique fraternity. It gives a player a moment to pause and think about where he's going. And it's no surprise when you look at the information that comes out of College Hockey Inc. about the academic success of hockey players. It's one of the highest successful sports from an athlete academic standpoint. Some of the highest graduation rates, academic standing rates, and grades, and so on. And so that, I think, that culture that we have, and because hockey requires such a commitment in time and effort and so on, money. Sometimes I wish it wasn't as much money, but I think from that standpoint, that's what helps me. It makes you a better person, a better player, a better student, just having that drive and that discipline to do that, think about it, from the end of August, depending on what your league does, our league will go to May 21st. I mean, it's a tough season, but that testing of you makes you better. And so I think that's what's great about it. The ecosystem in the Northeast, it was doing a really, really good job. And then I think we kind of lost our way in the tuition-based junior hockey. It all became about, we wanted to sell this Kool-Aid that we were the best, when the reality was that was not the case. You were one of the rungs on the ladder, and that just became not acceptable for some people. And I appreciate people wanting to strive to be better and have a significantly better brand than other teams or leagues, but there is a reality, and what we do in the USHL is a really special thing, and it's a delicate balance between business and development, right? So that's kind of what we do, and that environment is just conducive for players. Our players are at their facilities all day and doing something, whether it's classroom, weight room, video work, whatever it is, practice. I think those are the things that are really special and unique for the USHL compared to, just about anything else in the United States. So I think there can be a resurgence of junior hockey. That's this ebb and flow. And so we went from the Met League having 4 teams to then exploding from a league of 4 teams to teams from Portland, Maine to Palm Beach, Florida. There were, I don't know, I think we had 50 some odd teams between the Met League and the AJ. So it exploded, and then it contracted in some ways. But then I think youth hockey kind of got their act together at 15, 16, 18U and started realizing that the top players want more than what most tier 1 was providing. And now I think they're some of those programs are getting out of the lane that they really should be in. So I think you'll see some realignment, and that's just the nature of it. There's always this ebb and flow.
Yeah. And you touched on so many great points there. There's just, it's crazy. And we talk about it a lot on the podcast, just the culture of hockey players. We're a different breed. I mean, we are biased, of course, but we're so committed, and it speaks for itself. Our numbers with academics, our numbers with anything else, most hockey players who are
committed to it, they end up doing something that's beneficial, even if it's not hockey after. Like, it always ends to a decent path for most guys. And that's just such a special thing with hockey. And I know you mentioned just the ever-changing landscape of everything, and not everyone knows about the big CHL ruling this past year. And I know that's affected a lot of things, and also NIL. I know NIL is a big thing that most players are starting to look for that now in junior hockey and starting to line that up for college. So I'd love for you to talk about just how it's changed the CHL and NIL. I know it's done a lot to the whole junior hockey landscape.
Well, and any challenge that gives you the opportunity to become a better version of yourself is never a bad thing. So that's a challenge that I think is okay. I think the NIL, I think it's gotten a little bit, for certain sports, I think it's out of hand. When I see, $4 million for a college QB, I'm thinking, well, why would you go pro? So I just, I think there'll be a reset on that as well. I know we're hearing conversations in the halls of Congress looking at how to address NIL. I think the most important aspect is the amateurism pre-enrollment, because I think of this. I use this as an example all the time. There's a football stadium, high school football stadium. It was $90 million to build in Allen, Texas. They sell out every game. So what's next? We're going to start paying high school athletes. We've kind of lost our way in sport. The Aspen Institute does a report every year on the state of the game, just all of sport participation. And there was a time where participation was going down rapidly, but yet the industry from a dollar and revenue standpoint was skyrocketing. Youth sports is like a $24 to $25 billion industry, and yet participation is down. Now, thankfully, we are continuing to grow. That is a positive thing. Our female side is growing substantively. I think some of our pockets in the Northeast on the male side have to do some things to adjust so that we can reverse the trend, because that's kind of been downward. But most of the country, the South, Minnesota, of course, continues to grow. Minnesota makes up 20% of our, Minnesota players make up 20% of the USHL, and they have this disproportionate representation in college hockey, in both men's and women's, and in professional. Everyone should be asking themselves, why is that? Ask that question. Why is it that Minnesota, now we get it, there's a lot of players that play, but why is it that Minnesota players have this disproportionate representation in college and pro? Their model is really good. And I know that annoys, maybe some of the profiteers in the business, but their model is perfected. It's what youth sport should be. And there's too much professionalization in sport at the amateur level, and we have to try to turn that tide. And I think there are members of Congress that agree with that. We've had conversation with some of them. And so I would not be surprised to see Congress trying to do some things to realign, at least in the pre-enrollment period, anything prior to entering college. I think you'll hopefully see some realignment that really fully supports amateur sport development. One of the things that's always remarkable to me, the United States is the only country, the only government that does not contribute to its Olympic movement. It's the only Western nation in the world that does not contribute to its Olympic movement. And there's probably some pluses and minuses to that. Obviously, the more funding, the more participation, but I think those are big conversations we're going to have and be candid about those things.
So much good information. I know you touched a little bit on new partnerships with the league, and I know you said the NHL is at the forefront of some amazing, initiatives that you guys are doing together. Are there any really good partnerships that you are excited about for the future of the league?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity out there for us, and we are tied to agreements that we have that are, I inherited certain things that are in place, and we'll see those agreements through. But because of technology, there's so many different. We've got wearable tech companies that want to pay us to wear their product, and there's issues with that too. There's concerns. we speak to some people that are in the NHL lane, and they're like, hey, be careful, because wearable techs produce data that may not always be flattering for some players. So there is a cautionary note about those kinds of things. But with technology changing, it is always interesting to me. But even the player development systems, I'll give you an example. We put together a summit at the beginning of our season in early September. And we brought all of our strength and conditioning coaches to one central location. And we had somebody from the Detroit Red Wings and somebody from Michigan and somebody from GVN, and so we had the best people in the business for hockey anyway. And it was interesting. The lead instructor went through all of his bona fides of a degree from here and a certificate in this, and I have a background in all these things. And what I'm about to show you right now, I didn't know 2 years ago, and I was blown away by that. I was like, wow, this is how fast player development and off ice training is changing. I got to watch, and visually it's more noticeable because we did it at Plymouth, at the home of the national team program, and the 17 team came in. So this is September, right? It's the beginning of the season, and I thought it was like a Bantam team, like they were small. And I go, that's the 17 team, and then the 18 team came in, and it was men, every one of them, beasts. Like I was like, wow, 1 year of training at that level, and they're physiologically completely different creatures. So I think those were good lessons for all of our strength and conditioning coaches, and to be able to take back that information and implement it, into practice for all of the USHL teams. And we're going to continue to do things like that. Nutrition, wellness, sleep habits. Like I don't know how you guys operate, but like I see the sleep habits of young people, and they're terrible, and they don't understand the value of how important rest and recovery is. And so you have to teach those things and help them. Sometimes people have a hard time shutting it down at night, and so because we're scrolling through, right? So that's another one. I can spend 20 minutes on that. I always do a fun little experiment when I'm in a classroom with a bunch of players, and I'll often do presentations, and I'll get the permission of the parents. I said, hey, can we get the kids to open up their iPhones and ask them to go to screen time and read off their top 3 apps, and it's TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram, all of them. And now, if you ask the parent, it's going to be like a banking app, Safari. Right? That's what happens, right? So there's a difference. But the time spent, and I say it to players all the time, I said, you spent 17 hours in social media this week. Yep. Did you ever think that if you just took 1 hour a day, take a day off, but 1 hour a day, and stick handle in your basement, did it ever occur to you how much better you would be? But no, you're spending it in social media. So those are some of the habits that you want to try to get after and get, because those are the things that will prevent a good player from becoming a great player. They waste their time.
I think you said so many amazing things there, and I'm a little different than most people my age, but I'm in bed sleeping by 10:30. If ask Frank, I definitely prioritize that. And that's because of hockey. I maybe not the best when I was a player, but stepping away, I realized how important health is and everything like that. And I wanted to ask, you guys have had the national development team. I think it's just it's literally the epitome of hockey. If you play for that team, you are the best of the best, the elite of the elite. And I just love to hear just more about the National Development Team program. Everyone knows about it, but the development that they have, everything they're going through, the schedules. These kids are, I don't know what year they are now. It makes me even feel a little old, but they're playing against grown men coming in from a very young age, and it's just crazy.
Well, I think, the national team program that came about originally, it was run by Jeff Jackson and Bob Mancini. They were the first coaches that were brought in, and I know for a fact, knowing where the USHL was at that time, it has helped make all of the USHL much better. because it became this race of, oh, what do you do? Oh, okay, well, we're going to start doing that. And that was the impetus behind the tier 1 standards, right? So it's making sure that those standards are adhered to. Is it for everyone? No. Did they do an exceptional job at player development? There's no question they do. And I might even argue that technically they may not always get the best players. They get the best players that they want. That's what their goal is. And I think for the most part they do they do a really exceptional job at a lot of things. I'm sure if you ask them directly, they're going to tell you, well, there's a few things we wish we did a little better. Anybody who doesn't think that there is always room for improvement in their program or team, that's just nonsense. There's always room for improvement. So they do play an important role. You'll notice that a lot of times they have a tough time competing in the USHL, but for them, it's not about wins and losses.
Yep.
That is totally off the table for them. Where our teams will compete more for wins and losses because advancing into playoffs and all of those things, having a heavier compete is an important thing. So, I think it's a balance. It's not always a perfect symbiotic relationship with NTDP and the USHL, but we found a way to make it work, and it is a unique partnership. There is nothing like it. That program, there's nothing else like it in the world of hockey, in any other federation. And the relationship within the USHL, there's nothing like it in any other league. So it is unique. It has challenges. I think anybody would be foolish to not acknowledge that there can be clashes, but we find ways to resolve it and get through it. And I think that's a tribute to everyone in our room, from the NTDP to all of our coaches and GMs. So I think that's a plus, and it's helped make the league a better league. And you'll often see players that are not ready to move on. After they finish their time in NTDP, they land right back with the USHL team, and it's a good symbiotic relationship.
I had a question on, just, you touched on it initially, but the difference between USHL players at the next level making that transition, and we talk about it a lot of times, especially with hockey players, is mental strength, right? Is that something that, as a league, that you're instituting just a little bit more focus on that development of that mental side of a hockey player? Because, and Logan can, he can comment on this as well, that is the difference between who you are as a hockey player, who you want to become, and really just bridging that gap between taking that next step and that next leap as a player.
Well, it's a great question, but it's age old too, because there was a GM in the National Hockey League that was a good friend of our family, long time NHL GM by the name of Max McNabb, and he was the New Jersey Devils GM, and I think a large part responsible for drafting that young talent that helped win them their first Stanley Cup. And I had an occasion to be with Max and his wife out for dinner. And I had asked him, I go, what was it for you that, we're drafting him, we're not drafting him? What was the things that mattered to you? And he said this, and I remember like it was yesterday, and I could tell you what year it was. It was 1997. It was the year he got the Lester Patrick Award. And I asked him this question, and he says, oh, it's quite simple. He had to have it here. He had to have it here. And he pointed at his heart, and he had to be able to skate a little. He goes, the rest we could teach. And I went, come on, Max, it's not that simple. And he goes, actually, Glenn, it really is that simple. There's a lot of people that get paid a lot of money that want to make it more complicated than that. He goes, but that's the reality. It is that simple. If you have the head and the heart and you're a decent skater, we can teach the rest. He says, you look around the National Hockey League, there's some guys that are not the best skaters. He says, but they think at light speed. He says, they just think the game, and you can tell that they're going to make a play happen just because they're thinking. And the heart obviously is, that's that you're just willing to commit yourself to anything, whatever pain, suffering, hit, whatever it takes, you're going to do. And that's where he got after it. And I think that's really true. So the mental part of this game is really, look, you see some very talented players that have all the skill in the world and they can't think the game. It's just an element missing for them. They have the heart and they could become really worthy players, just that little extra edge in the mental game becomes important. So we have, but even mental health plays a role. I heard this example. I want to make sure I get it right. This is the difference between boys and girls. Girls need to feel good to play good. Boys need to play good to feel good. And I think that is it's a great example of why boys and girls are different. And that actually came to me from a gal by the name of Jen Cronenberger, who was multiple TED Talks, and she's coached college sport and a brilliant lady. And so I want to give her credit for that, but it does resonate. And so mental health, think about it. You're packing up, you're moving into a house with a total stranger who has kids. You don't like the kid, or you do, and whatever, like it's just a different situation. The food's different from home. It is different. And in a lot of cases the teams have gotten really good at matching, players with the right billet family, and they've perfected it. And so, but it's still, for you as the player, it's unknown, right? It's a new experience for a lot of players. And so I think I think that having that mental toughness and good mental health is important. We use an app called Headversity, which is a product provided to us through a grant from the National Hockey League. And, we go through a session with our players at the Fall Classic to make sure that they understand how to use the app and familiarize themselves with all the tools that are available within it. And I think that's, it's important. You think about when you bump into somebody you haven't seen in a while and you say, "Hey, how you doing, Frank?" And the first words out of your mouth are, "Oh, I'm great." And the reality is you may not be great. A lot of times we're not great. And so it's getting, players, it's difficult sometimes for men to say, "Hey, I'm not in a great place." And it's really hard to tell your coach, because your coach decides your ice time. And so it's finding other outlets. I know many of the teams have a minister through Hockey Ministries, which, is awesome. And I'm watching, if you watch any of our games, watch the end, and you'll see in many instances, sometimes both teams, but often teams will take to center ice and they take a knee and they wrap their arm around each other and they say a prayer. And I think that's awesome. The part of good mental health, I think, is if you are a person of faith, is being able to engage in your faith. And I think all of our teams, they don't force it, which I think is really good. Nobody's obligated to do it, but they provide it as a resource so that you can engage in your faith in, some way, somehow. And I think Hockey Ministries does an amazing job with that. So I think every single team in our league just about has someone from Hockey Ministries that meets with them on a routine basis. That's all part of, and I know when I'm down and I'm battling it, I turn to my faith. It's the easiest thing I can do. And you know what? Within a day, I'm right back to where I need to be. And so that plays, I think, a really important role. And I love seeing when our teams take a knee after a game. And I really love it when I see both teams come together after a hard-fought battle, and now they're taking a knee at center ice, to pray together. I think that's just and not every player does it. Some will skate off, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But for the ones that do, it's an empowering moment. So I think that's all plays a role in mental health.
I think it's just a very powerful thing, just no matter what. I mean, just us as men and all those players growing through it. And of course we want to be respectful to your time. It just went by. It's already 45 minutes, but just so amazing that like the teams have ministers to be able to have that there for them and have those resources to be okay mentally, because that is a big thing for athletes no matter what. And as we start to, wrap it up here, I would love to hear, kind of changing the topic a little bit, but would love to hear your favorite story from just being the USHL commissioner, and just something that you'd love to tell people and something that you'd just reminisce on.
Oh, there's one that stands out to me. It was last year. It was obviously my first presentation of the Clark Cup, and it was in Dubuque. Fargo had won it, and I had just presented the cup, and I had stepped off, they're all having a great celebration. And we did some cool things for them. We actually took we had it for both teams, depending on who's going to win. We had posters made for both teams, and it had the cup superimposed on it, and, Clark Cup champions. And so we were giving those out, and fans were loving that. And it was great. And about 10 minutes into the celebration, or 5 minutes into, 5 or 10 minutes into the celebration, the players began cutting the net off the pipes, and a player, I don't even know which one it was, I almost feel bad about it, stepped off the ice, had the wherewithal to do this, stepped off the ice and brought me a piece of the net and said, "Commissioner, this is for you. We know this is your first cup too."
I have chills.
And I was like dumbfounded. I was like, wow, that is probably one of my favorite moments in all of hockey. Like, the fact that he had the wherewithal to think that way, I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away. So that's my favorite moment so far.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Commissioner, I know we're going to be winding down here, but I just wanted to tell you, the USHL, like I said before, the greatest league in the world. I was fortunate to play on an amazing team, won both cups, the Anderson Cup and the Clark Cup. The Clark Cup, by the way, is extremely heavy. So don't ever try to pick the thing up, because I almost broke my back.
But tell me about it.
I was so fortunate to be part of an amazing coaching staff, an amazing league. And, real quick, I was born in Canada. So my exposure to the USHL came more when it was coming up through midgets and everything. But I couldn't say enough about the league at that time, even the lessons it taught me in life and just made me into the man I am today. So we've been blessed to this point to have amazing people on this podcast that are just continuously building the community and growing the message of hockey. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time and being part of just building the futures of the next generation.
Well, listen, thanks for having me, first of all. So it's my pleasure to be here. And I think when we start to look at, you talk about being a Canadian. I'm a horrible hockey player from Jersey City that was not good at all, started late. And so we all have this great, and that was the thing for me, is that I knew I was bad. Like, I knew I was a terrible player. And my teammates welcomed me. I started late. I was 12 and a half when I started. And that, we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion. We hear those. Some people have visceral reactions to that term. But the one thing, and I'm not a fan of the word inclusion, because I think it sounds clinical. It's like, we've checked a box. We've invited you to the party. The difference maker is when you feel like you belong. And when all of those teammates, who I am still very close with to this day, many of them, they all made me feel like I belonged. And that's why I stayed with it. Because I knew I had no business being on the ice. And because I was not a good player, I'd say it candidly. And I got a little better as I started reffing. Our hockey club made us start reffing when we were 15. And so because of that, I actually became a little bit of a better skater. If you don't start skating, young, it's hard to get caught up. Some can do it. Some that are really athletic can do it, but it's a hard skill, right? So, but there was never a moment where I didn't feel like I belonged. Now, you get picked on. Oh, you got funny shoes today. You got a weird haircut or whatever. The normal stuff that you'd face anywhere, but never you didn't. I always felt like I belonged. And one particular person, I call him every year to thank him, because I literally collided with him at a public skate. And he looked, he says, "It's those figure skates." I'm like, "Well, these are the skates that were under the tree." I tell that story all the time. And I went, he said, "You got to get hockey skates." And I did that day. And they were cheap. They were a local department store. And he saw me skating that night at public skating. And he said, "Come to my house. I'm going to give you my old gear." And he says, "You'll play on my team." And we went home to his house, and they introduced me to his parents. And it turns out his parents knew my mom really well, for years knew my mom. So full circle. And he goes, "Oh, well, Dad, Glenn's going to play with us in the hockey program." And I started. And as I said, They all made me feel like I was as much a part of the team as anybody else. When you have that feeling of belonging, it's a powerful feeling. And so, and even at our level, players can go down that lane where they're not always accepting of other players. And that's a culture that I know we talk about as well, that it's really important that players feel like they belong, and this is a place to develop and grow, and that they're safe. I think parents want to know that their sons are safe, and I think those are some of the important things that we try to accomplish in the USHL.
Yeah. And I mean, across hockey, just the camaraderie that we have as players and people that we can just talk about this no matter what, all walks of life, everywhere on earth. It's just hockey brings us together, and it's such a beautiful thing. And I've had the pleasure of knowing you and knowing of you since I could walk. So I
Pretty much.
I can't thank you enough for coming on, Glenn. It means the world to me. It means the world to Frank. And yeah, hockey is a better place with you. Hockey is a better place. The USHL is a better place, and it's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much again, Commish. Thank you so much again for the Commish, Glenn Hefferan, for taking time to talk to us and just tell us all the new happenings going on with the USHL. Just so good to see the health of the league, everything they're doing for the next generation of players. And again, doing such a great job at the helm and with the new partnerships with the NHL. I know the sky's the limit. And you guys know I'm biased. I want a ring in that league. So what'd you guys think?
I'll jump in before J-Bomb here, but just absolutely amazing. Like I said, I've known Glenn since I was a little kid. He's just a grade A human, a grade A commissioner, grade A leader. And he really is setting outstanding goals, especially with the changing landscape of junior hockey right now for the USHL. He's setting out outstanding goals and really hitting all those marks. It's something that it's just awesome to see so much talent being pushed out of there every single year, accounting for, I forget the exact number in there, but I think it was 60% of the college hockey players in the United States, which is just bananas. And I know we say it a lot, but hockey is definitely a better place with Glenn Hefferan. He's really doing some amazing things.
Boys, I can't thank you enough for holding it down for the Locker Room Life podcast, gang. We know I have a busy schedule and I can't make a lot of these interviews, but I am just so thrilled and just lucky to be here to zip it around with you guys in these moments. And I love listening to an interview that I can't make. So thanks again. I really appreciate it. And Glenn, thanks for your time.
On that note, thank you again to our sponsors, Cut Shield Hockey, Buddy Hockey Club, Best Damn Tape, and Being a Shave Cream. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to listen. We appreciate you and we love you. See you guys in the next one.
Love you, boys.
Love you guys.